Hi guys, welcome to episode 7 of the Fiberista Files. It is June 10th, 2010. It is after the Fiber Frolic. I am all done. And I'd love to tell you all about it. I promised you a two-parter. This will probably be a two-parter because I have a really hard time sticking to 10 minutes. Plus there's so much to talk about. So generally, I do what's in the dye pot. I haven't dyed anything this week because I'm out of things to dye and out of energy to dye them with. I will show you, I missed the last few things that I dyed in the last few yarns that I dyed up. I forgot to, or didn't forget. I didn't have time to podcast, so I couldn't show you. So I want to show you the last 3 skeins of sock yarn that I did. These will be available up in the Etsy shop shortly, and I'll talk more about that in a minute. This one is called Survivor. This is pinks, hot pinks and baby pinks and all kinds of pinks. You can see, I got a new webcam and I think you can see this much more easily. The varied shades in this. This is a semi-solid. It's not kettle dyed, but the effect is much the same. I actually quasi kettle dyed, quasi hand painted, quasi a lot. I did what I needed to make sure that it looked the way I wanted it to look. So that one is Survivor. And of course, all of these are the same base. They're 75% superwash wool and 25% nylon. This one is Summit. Now, this is a funny story about this one because this one, Summit, is almost a goldy orangey yellow. It's, to me, it looks orange. To some people, it looks yellow. It's kind of depends on who you are, I guess. Dark navy blue, and you can see, I hope you can see, some dark gray in there as well. It's a very dark skein with some high contrast bits to it. My husband actually selected this colorway. He showed me something that had these colors in it and said, dye me that. And I said, okay. And I didn't think it would do very good. And at the Frolic, this is the only skein I have left. All 3 of them sold out. I kind of had to eat crow because my husband's colorways, he offers colorways every once in a while, and sometimes I ask him for inspiration. Every one of his colorways was admired. Not all of mine were. Oh well, maybe I should make him pick the colors from now on. I'm not really sure. The third colorway that I did up is called Seedless. I love this one. People got it. I love that they got it before they even saw the colorway. That this is supposed to be reminiscent of watermelon. There's some rich pinks and some lighter pinks and some rich greens and some lighter greens. It's a watermelon. And so I called it Seedless. That makes sense, right? All of these are approximately 430 yards. They're usually a little bit above that, but it's hard to gauge. So I just say approximately 430 yards and go with that. So those will all be going up in the Etsy shop. Just about everything that I didn't sell will be going up if it isn't up already. The spindles will be going up. The BFL, which only one colorway of the BFL sold out. The Superwash Merino, none of those sold out. So if you had an eye on one of the colorways, odds are I have at least one braid left. And the yarn as well. The only colorway that I sold out of was Sea Glass, which is kind of funny because the skein of Sea Glass I had in the shop for over a month didn't sell, and then it sold almost immediately when we got to the Frolic. All 5 skeins that I had of that sold. So I will be doing up more of the Sea Glass as soon as I replenish my order, which will be here in a couple of weeks. So, Maine Fiber Frolic 2010 was the last weekend, June 6th and 7th. I don't know if you're around Maine or in Maine. It rained the whole weekend. Friday afternoon, we got there, we set up. My dad has a 12 by 12, one of those canopies that you just pull up the sides and you put on the roof and then you push up the sides and it's all done. And the side walls, just in case, we put up our racks. Everything was all done. It was sunny. It was like 70 degrees. It was kind of humid. You knew there were going to be thunder showers, but I kept all of our yarn, all of the fiber, everything in their plastic totes, in plastic trash bags, in the back of my dad's pickup truck, which had a cap on it. So the fiber was all dry. We weren't going to put that up till Saturday because I didn't want it to walk away and I didn't want it to get wet. So anyway, we got there Saturday morning in a downpour. We got there at 7. They weren't opening up until 9, and for those 2 hours, it poured buckets. In fact, it rained so hard that the canopy, which is water resistant, not waterproof, started to leak inside. And so around the edges, where all of the places where the braces touched the roof, it dripped. It dripped on our tables. It dripped on the ground in front of where people were walking, and it did drip on the racks. We had to string plastic bags up behind on the supports, you know, on those braces. We had to tape plastic bags up there so that the water would drip on the far side of them and not onto the fiber. It was pretty miserable. I was ready to cry, to be completely honest. I'd spent all this money and effort in getting ready for the frolic and doing what I needed to do, and people were walking by not stopping. They were walking for the barns and the exhibition hall, which were dry, and classes, which were in the exhibition hall, I think. That could be wrong. But anyway, they were headed for dry land, and I don't blame them. I certainly wouldn't have wandered around wet, soggy fields either. But it was disheartening for sure. Eventually, the rain lightened up, and I was bored. God, I was bored. I was too nervous to knit. My husband kept looking at me saying, you know, do you want to leave? Was this a bad idea? And I was really starting to doubt myself. So I grabbed one of his spindles, and I went out and took some trash fiber I decided not to sell because I didn't like it. And I started to spindle. This is one of his spindles. You can see, oh, this webcam is awesome. It's curly maple. You can see it almost looks three-dimensional there. It's the mid-weight curly maple. I think this is 1.38 of an ounce. And it's got, you know, the 6+ inch shaft. So I took this and I took some fiber. And I went out and I started spindling out in front of the booth. The less it rained, the more comfortable I was being out there. And I certainly didn't want to be in the dark, dank, wet, cave-like booth that I was in. So I went out there and I started to spin. And as I started to spin, I saw some people were kind of looking at me. And one of them pointed. And eventually they wandered over and they wanted to know what I was doing and how I was doing it. And they were chittering amongst themselves that that was their problem. They couldn't do it, blah, blah, blah. Then they went in the booth. And so I kept going, and I was listening to my husband, and he knows all the stuff, and he was talking to them and everything. And then another couple asked me some questions about what I was doing while I was spinning. And then they went in the booth. And it ended up being kind of like a little, I don't want to say a joke, but a technique maybe that I was using, that every time the booth got empty, I'd go outside of the booth where I was in clear view of the surrounding areas, and I'd start to spin. And as soon as I spun, people would come up and then they'd come in the shop. So we actually ended up doing quite well on Saturday. The rain held off in the afternoon. And we made back that first night our original investment, which was the hundreds of dollars that we had spent to buy the wholesale order and to purchase the router for the spindles and all that. And we just needed to make enough to replenish my stock, which honestly, I was happy with. If I made back my money, I was going to be enough. I was hoping it was going to get my name out there and maybe develop a following. I gave out a ton of business cards, all of this to try and lay groundwork for the future. So I was content with that. This is what I ended up with after the 2 days. It looks a lot thicker than, because this is on the outside of the spindle. This is when the spindle is heavy. But I was getting a pretty good spin on this. This is slightly thick and thin. This is not maybe the best example to show you. If I pull it down off the shaft a little bit. Hang on. You can see in there maybe? Like that. You can see that I was spinning fairly consistently. It's good stuff in there. This spindle spins awesome. And of course it was one of the ones that we had for sale, so it was a good marketing technique as well. So that was Saturday. On Sunday, we got there at about 7 o'clock in the morning. It was raining again. It was thunder and lightning at 7 o'clock in the morning, which is basically unheard of. That never happens. It was miserable. We walked around a little bit that morning because we didn't have as much set up to do. So we walked around and we talked to some people. We talked quite a while to the lady from Enchanted Knoll Farms, which I'll link in the show notes. Their stuff is amazing. And she explained sort of the way things work and how Sunday was going to be a little bit slower. And she was right. It was. We definitely didn't sell. We sold maybe a third of what we sold on Sunday. But we made back the money we needed to, and it was a good learning experience. And although Sunday was a little bit wet, we had a good time. We packed everything up just about 4 o'clock when the frolic got over. We packed everything up and the rain totally stopped and the sun came out, and we thought, well, there. But at least we didn't have to pack everything up in the rain, which was good. So we brought everything home, went home. I still have not unpacked. I still have not done much other than I dried the first tote of fiber, which was a little damp, and I started to list stuff. So as stuff gets dried out and, made sure that everything looks fine and there's no bugs or anything on it, I will list those in the shop. So part 2 is coming up in just a second. Hang on.